Hey, I'm gonna try to review this movie again. I recorded it one a review for it earlier, but I didn't like how I was kind of just rambling on, so I'm gonna just try to review it again. Um, so I'm gonna be reviewing Hellraiser, which came out in 1987. It's directed by Clive Barker, who also wrote the short story The Hellbound Heart, which I haven't read yet. So I'll try to give a basic plot for this movie. Most people probably have already seen this, but anyways, it's about um this family um that move into this house, and they find out that there was someone already in the house, which you find out was the husband slash father's brother, Frank. But Frank's not there, but his belongings are. So, when they're moving into the house, Larry cuts his hand, and he goes up into the attic and accidentally resurrects Frank's body, which was underneath the floorboards in the attic. Um, Earlier in the movie, you find out that when Frank was in the Middle East somewhere, he bought this puzzle box, which is known as the Lament Configuration, which basically, if you desire it, it opens and it lets you experience all the pain and pleasure that you can. And he does this, and he is torn apart and sent to hell by these creatures called Cenobites. So Frank gets assists the help of Julia, which is Larry's wife, but Frank had an affair with her before or while she was going to marry Larry, and he's basically convinces her to bring him men and kill them so he can resurrect even more, so he can escape the Cenobites. Kirsty, the daughter, finds out about this and has to try and stop Frank and the Cenobites. That's kind of the basic plot for the movie. It's kind of hard explaining it. But what did I think about this movie? So I've always heard about this movie because I knew, like, when I first started getting into horror, I knew about all the big slashers, and Pinhead's considered one of them, even though he's not really a slasher. So I saw this movie sometime when I was a teenager. I don't remember what age I was. I bought the movie and I took it home and watched it, and I was kind of let down because, I was expecting more of like a slasher type movie, or a movie more about, hell and stuff like that, and it wasn't. It was basically just a monster movie set in a house. Later on, when I started watching the other ones and I started learning more about this universe and stuff, I kind of developed more of an appreciation for this movie, but it's not my favorite still. I think the second movie is my favorite in the franchise. This would probably be number 2, my second favorite. So the acting in it is kind of hit or miss. Because I believe this movie is supposed to be set in America, but you can tell it's filmed in England because of the architecture and like how the house is built and stuff. It's very European, and some of the actors, because there's a documentary called Leviathan, which is a long but very in detail documentary of the first and second movie. And I believe because they interview the actors who play the movers in this, and they have a British accent, but in the movie they have an American accent, and I think that was probably dubbed, but yeah, it didn't sound that good. Then, uh, the, I mean, that, like I said, the acting's hit or miss, and that was they're not even main characters, they're just like side characters. Kirsty's boyfriend's not in it that much, but he's kind of just there. Um, Andrew Robinson's probably the best one out of them. He plays the father, Larry, and it was just interesting to see him play like a straight-laced kind of meek, sensitive kind of guy character. Because I've mainly known him for playing villains in movies. And it was just interesting to see him play a different kind of character. Claire Higgins plays Julia. She's alright. She's doesn't say much, doesn't really do much. Well, she does help Frank come back and stuff, but she's just there. The guy who plays Frank, the human, or not human Frank, well, I guess human Frank, he does a decent job. The guy who plays, Frank, Skinless Frank, he does an amazing job. Then Kirsty, or who's played by Ashley Lawrence, she's pretty good too. But yeah, I like one of the main things I do like about this movie is the special effects. I forgot the guy's name. I think it's Bob Keaton, or I think I was watching the special features on the Candyman Blu-ray recently, and he popped up on there because he did the effects in that movie. He put that scene, the scene when Frank's resurrected. That's an amazing special effects scene because it's shot in reverse, but it was cool seeing like the bones underneath the floorboards, and like when the blood seeps through, and you see like the bones and the ligaments and the goo and the tissue forming, and then like later on he starts developing more muscle and stuff like that. It was a really good effect that scene, and then like how Skinless Frank looks in the movie, which before seeing this movie I had a dream before about a skinless guy. And when I saw this movie, it freaked me out because it reminded me of that dream I had. And I was like, oh my god. So, also there's another, that's like the biggest special effect in the movie. The second one would probably be when, Frank gets torn apart at the end. The one where it goes, the famous line, Jesus wept. That was a pretty good effect, like how the hooks were like pulling out his face and stuff. Other than that, there's not that much gore and violence in it, besides like Julia killing the men, but she just bashes them over the head with a hammer, and sometimes it's like off screen or not that bloody. Like when they're put in at the beginning when Frank gets torn apart, and the Cenobites are like trying to put him back together. That was pretty cool how they're like trying to put his face back together. That was pretty gross. All the Cenobites look amazing too. My favorite one is the Chatterer. I just love how he looks. And the female Cenobite and Butterball and Pinhead. And like I said before, I thought that when I saw the movie, I thought Pinhead was going to be the main villain, but he's not. He's more just like a bounty hunter, I guess. Julia and Frank are the main villains in the movie. Like, that's what you gotta understand if you've never seen this, if you go in to watch this, that Pinhead's more of the background character, and Julia and Frank are actually the main villains of the movie. So, like, when you watch it, because when I found out about that later on, watching the movies and watching documentaries about it, I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I understand now. Um, but I also love the music in this movie. It is really amazing. It's by Christopher Young. I forgot what else he scored, but I know the first movie he scored was The Dorm That Dripped Blood. Um, but I love the music in this movie. Probably if one of my favorite horror soundtracks. I don't know, it's hard because I love the Candyman soundtrack too, but all the music in this is beautiful. It's like music you wouldn't think would fit in this for a movie like this. Like there's one scene where Frank's being resurrected, like that famous effects shot where he's getting built back up into a human or get like a human. Um there's like this waltzy kind of score and it's just so beautiful. It doesn't seem like it would fit the scene, but it does. And I listen to this album, this soundtrack often because it just sucks me in and like zones me out like the Candyman soundtrack does. Yeah, I love the music in this. The cinematography is pretty good, but there's not really much shots outside of the house. Most of the movie takes place in the house, in the attic and stuff. So like, I liked how he does film it like film in the attic, like when the Cenobites come through and you see like the hooks and the chains when they come out, and the blue lights when they're showing up. Uh, Now some of the effects kind of don't look that good, like when Kirsty goes to the hospital and she accidentally opens up the puzzle box, and there's this creature called the Engineer. It's when she's walking down that hallway and that big creature thing comes after her. That's called the Engineer. It kind of looked cheesy. And then the one at the end, because there's like this homeless guy that's throughout the movie. I'm guessing he's like the gatekeeper for the hell and the Cenobites. He turns into at the end when everything goes down and they blow up, the house blows up and all that. He picks up the puzzle box and then like he transforms into like this skeleton bird thing. It flies off. That looked pretty cheesy. I mean it's from 1987, so I don't expect, and it's a pretty low budget movie, so I don't expect everything to be like top notch and amazing. Like I know some people complain about the blue light, the little blue electrical lights, like when Frank's opening the puzzle box. I mean, because it looks cheesy, but I mean that is from the 80s. Like their computer graphics and stuff wasn't that advanced, so I have no problem with that. Yeah, I mean I like the movie, but it's not my favorite. I mean, it took me a while to start appreciating it for what it was, and for Clive Barker's directorial debut, I think he did a pretty good job at it. I also like how the puzzle box looks too. You don't really see it too much close up in the movie, but um, yeah, I would recommend it. I think most people like horror probably already seen this movie. But anyways, that's my review.